welcome back to episode 7 of Arsenal Pass, Time in the Round. I'm joined by the man who kept me waiting for 20 minutes, Hayden Dale. Hayden, how are you doing?
Good morning. I mean, we just got to get straight into it. Brendan, Brendan's gone Super Saiyan.
Yep, so that did happen. Someone's got to step up. Somebody had to be the daddy of the relationship, so went and dyed the hair, I guess. I was kind of going for white. I think I ended up on straight gold. So you got the full-on champion's haircut right here.
This is what happens when you win one road to nationals. You go and dye your hair. Right, go. Yeah, look, I mean, Brendan, I'm still sat here in lockdown. So Brendan, after he tried to peer pressure and bully me into doing the blonde dye, decided that he actually had to take one for the team here and go and get it done. So you know what? I'm actually annoyed because it looks kind of good on you, so it's actually frustrating. But
dude, I think it looks a little ridiculous. It's funny because it doesn't look very natural.
It does not.
To sushi. I went and got sushi like literally right after, and it's like I live in Texas, and I mean like people were looking at me, and there was like I swear we were pulling up to the sushi restaurant. There was this like older gentleman, he's probably like 60, 70, and he's like, I don't know. He's like smoking a cigarette right outside, and we like drove by and like we were in traffic, so he stopped. He looked at me and he went, and I was just like, "What the fuck?"
I mean, you also, I think when you change your appearance to some degree, I think you're self-conscious the first few days or weeks, and it makes you like you're conscious of it. You're thinking about it. You're like, oh, my hair's blonde. People looking at me.
Yeah, I mean, that dude straight up was like, "What the fuck?" Like he was like, okay.
He's like, is that Zac Efron in there?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Like, I don't mind it. I think it's actually kind of funny, but who knows? I guess maybe I'll stay there. I'm just happy it didn't. I thought it was going to look way, way worse. When it was first done, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is terrible.
Yeah, Brendan sent me a picture like midway through of him with like the blue, like the dye in, which obviously looks blue because of the toning and the color. And then I just was like, I didn't believe you at first when you said you were going to get it done. I was like, okay, he's going to get it done, but how's he going to do it? I'm glad you went and got it done professionally because you don't want it to look terrible out of the box. So
yeah, for me it wasn't even like wanting to look so good. It was like my skin has kind of been sensitive in the past, so I didn't want like to
dye all over your skin. So
yeah, so they use it's like a kind of like a bleachy thing, but it's like oil based, so it's really easy on the skin. Yeah, so that was nice. I was not my scalp was not burning.
It's good.
So that's ideal.
Looking
but
good.
Anyway, Hayden will be joining me soon, and I think around 1K or something like that. I don't want to say too much because who knows? Hayden has been dragging his feet. But Hayden, we are going
I've been dragging my feet. I've been locked in the house, mate. I'm like a little kid.
Yeah, I think you're happily locked in the house with your beautiful natural hair. But we are heading into Road to Nationals Week 2, Hayden. I know, unfortunately, you do not have an event, but you have been testing with people that do. So, from what you saw, by the way, Hayden did a really, really awesome article on Channel Fireball where he did a breakdown of kind of some of the more popular meta decks, like the winners, all this kind of stuff. Really his top piece of literature so far.
We'll talk about that. But there is another club on CFP, just a bit of a power rankings, I guess, bi-weekly rankings as we go through the season. So, if you are interested in I guess, some of the data, shout out to Davis Kingsley, who Town Number 9 has been putting up a Google sheet of the results that he's been able to track from the rotational so far, which has been helpful in putting that kind of data out. So you can go see that in one place. There's some of the key deck lists that took out events over the weekend. Just go have a look if you're interested in that.
Mm-hmm. So obviously you've looked into it, looked into kind of all the winners, what the meta looks like. I think, probably most of the Road to Nationals were in North America, right? So what are you thinking as we head into week 2? You thinking there's going to be a lot of meta shifts? People are going to be changing off of decks onto certain decks? Like, what was your sort of takeaway if you were going to predict week 2?
Yeah. So, I mean, just maybe a step back a bit. Week 1 was really a, Katsu, Chain, Prism, Bravo meta. We saw Bolton come through to some degree. Maybe we saw a little bit less of the control decks than people were talking about. But I think that's probably going to... Yeah, I think, the first week of results, so if you look at who had the best results, the Katsu decks had the best results across the mid-range and the control decks. I think the control decks have been the ones that have been talked about more. I expect to probably see a bit more Katsu control this week again. Deck seems to be popular. Deck's fairly straightforward to play. It's a bit of IRA-esque in Blitz, and that your game plan's pretty set. You're just kind of, I guess, sideboarding depending on what you're playing into, but your game plan doesn't really change. I'm expecting to see a bit more Boltyn this week. I think Boltyn is a hero that people didn't really understand how to probably build that well. They were like, do we play Sabres? Do we play Raiden? People were obviously even trying Axes. There's some really cool hybrid builds out there over the weekend that played Sabres and Raiden. There's some just really good solid Raiden builds, which I think is probably still going to be more the default with Boltyn, just given that weapon is really strong. It's a lot easier to build more consistent decks that use Raiden, I think. So I expect to see that. I think as well, it's really difficult to know right now, unless you've tested a ton of Boltyn, kind of what your matchups are like. But I think that deck just has like a really solid progressive plan that I think is going to attract people to play it this weekend. So wouldn't be shocked to see that. I think we'll still see Chain come through. Obviously, Brennan, you obviously took out an event last weekend on Chain, and I don't expect us to see less Chain than we did last weekend. I think as people start to grapple with what Chain means in this meta. And if I think about any sort of, I guess I would maybe expect Prism to go down a little bit. Prism had the worst weekend from like a conversion rate. If you look at the data that was available, not a single win for Prism, but a lot of people playing the deck and a reasonable amount of top 8s. I think it might have been like the 4th or 5th highest top 8 deck. So yeah, I'm expecting Prism to maybe go down a bit as people try and look to more, I guess, more consistent plans, like maybe like a Boltyn, where they can play into things like Guardian and Chain. So yeah, that's probably what I expect. I expect we might actually see a bit more Root this weekend from players who are a bit more tapped into the meta. Once this video goes out, we're halfway through the weekend already. But yeah, I'd expect to see maybe some Brute to target some of these control decks that people are expecting, and the Prism numbers that we saw last week. But anyway, Brent, you're off to an event tomorrow. Well, at the time of this actually goes up, you'll be playing an event. As we're going to put this up a day earlier than usual because we wanted to get the blonde hair out there and this topical discussion. So we had to get it out before we put up a gameplay video or anything. So Brendan, what are you going to be playing and why? Why are you playing that deck? Are you still on Chain?
I'm not playing Chain, but it's because I kind of just want to have fun. So yeah, I mean, Road to Nationals are interesting because like anything outside of winning after you've won one pretty much doesn't matter. You get the cold foil hero, but those are probably going to go down in price quite a bit because there's a lot of them. So it really doesn't matter unless you win. So it's weird that I'm still incentivized to try my hardest and play the best deck. But maybe that's what I want. Maybe that's not what I'm doing. So I'm going to be playing Bravo. I'm playing a really weird Bravo list, though. It's going to be very aggressive. And honestly, aggressive to a fault, where it's breaking the rules of how many blues you should play, and honestly, what the deck consists of completely. But yeah, I mean, I feel pretty comfortable on it. I've been testing it, and it's been going well. And it's kind of a high variance deck. It's really not my style. Most Bravo decks are quite consistent. They're pretty low variance, but this one is, since it's resource base is kind of stretched, it is a bit higher variance. But I kind of always want to have fun, roll with it, and pull out something new. I also do think that a lot of people will be targeting the list that we published on YouTube. Whether or not you can do that, no matter how hard you try.
I don't know what that looks like, to be honest, but sure.
We will see. No matter, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what they come up with. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good pick for me to be on something else, just a lot less predictable. And I don't know. I'm sure a bunch of people will say some funny stuff after I play Bravo. It's like, oh, I just played Chain so that he could eventually play Bravo, the real good deck. Something silly like this.
Let them think what they want.
Yeah. What's funny though is that since this is time in the round, I can't say my opinion. You mentioned Katsu Control being more popular, and I think that's the worst deck in the format, like by far. I think that deck is
close, yeah.
Yeah, I think it outside of, obviously like someone could just bring some crazy brew. It's no good, but that deck is positioned so badly, in my opinion. Maybe if you're slapping bad players with it, because it is punishing for bad players, right? Kadachis and card economy of your life, all this kind of stuff, and being punished for going again, and just heavy defense reactions. But against a good player, it seems like it almost has no tools, right? It just has to draw extremely well to do any damage. And then it's just like a crappy Ninja Control deck because it doesn't have Drone Brutality. What's funny is that I was actually testing Bravo versus Ninja Control. I was at 1. Ninja was at 1. I was up on cards. And actually I was slightly down life. I think he was at like 3 and I was at 1. No, we were both at 1. But basically, as Ninja Controller, you can't fatigue. Like, you just lose fatigue to Bravo because Hammer for 4, Kadachi card, and Bravo will usually be higher on cards because he's blocking a bit less in the matchup. But it depends how you block the Kadachis. But it's just funny how the end games have changed because without Junk Brutality, like, it's a really crappy control deck, especially in the end game, because you're probably full of blues, barely have any 4 attacks left. You're just Kadachi, 2 or 3 or something silly like that. So,
yeah, it's very interesting because if you look at where the Katsu or like Ninja Turtle decks have come in the past, right? So you had originally, of course, the deck that yourself and Sasha played, and Sasha won the first constructed calling with. And then if I look at the next kind of performance of a Katsu control deck, it was probably Jason Long decided to take it to a Road to Nationals last Road to Nationals season, just after Crucible had dropped. Being a part of that group, we felt pretty confident there's going to be a ton of Warrior with people like, playing with their new toys, the spoils and courages and things like that. And people still hadn't quite worked out how to adapt Dash with Plasma Purifier at that point. So he took that deck, just kind of crushed the field, to be honest, because there was so much Warrior and just normal Ninja, normal Katsu and things like that out there. And then we kind of had a break, right, where Dash dominated and people wouldn't play Katsu control into it because you just got pretty stomped, right? You couldn't keep up, just too much damage. Yeah, you just can't outpace that. And then Drone got banned. And the deck that currently sits there is a control deck. And I think, the list that Winton decided to play at that ProQuest, at that PTI was a good idea. I think it fit the format. People didn't understand how to play into it because people were so focused on Chain and Prism. But we're sitting in this meta now where you have a one-dimensional game plan, where there's other control decks in the format, where there's other decks in the format that are trying to play 5-card hands, and you can't adapt to play into 5-card hand decks to try and pressure them because you don't have much of an adaptive game plan aside of maybe putting some Surging Strikes and some League Taps in your deck and maybe some Plunder Runs. And it's like, that doesn't do enough. You're going to run out of that damage and your opponent can still set up these 5-card hands. And once you get, and you also, even if you're trying to pressure them, if you try and swing tempo against your opponent to try and put some pressure on them, and all of a sudden you draw yellow and blue flick in your hand plus 2 other blues, like what do you do with that hand? You can't pressure someone with their hands. So the deck is, I think I said this to you last night, I was like, this deck is just, I don't understand why you'd want to be playing this deck after week 1. I think week 1, sure, I get it, easy deck to take into week 1 and just, try and feel out the meta. But now that we have some understanding of the meta, I'm not sure. But I do genuinely think it'll be seeing more play than it did last week.
Oh, yeah, and it has 0 chance in the mech, in my opinion. Like, I think it's so bad. Like, before Sasha even went to Legendary Studios, Arcane Rising came out, and we tested Ninja Control into Dash Control, which is Dash Control without a Purifier, Arcane Rising. It's not even close. Like, and that was with Drone. Like, Dash Control is just a better Ninja Control in terms of presenting many forms of damage that are going to be relevant. With the not with the Purifiers, with the Induction Chambers, go again. It's such a good deck, and it slaps Ninja Control. Like, it's not even close. So it'll be interesting because Matt Rogers did win on mech. So the mech is going to show up.
That's
and
true.
Like I said, I'm playing Bravo, so even I'm making a crappy decision, right? Like, mech is by far my worst matchup, by far. It's not even close, and that deck should be way more popular than it was in week 1. But we'll see how it goes. So it's also kind of why I'm on the super aggressive plans, because I don't think like a standard Bravo deck's super well positioned at this point. But yeah, it's just interesting, and we'll see how it pans out. Less Prisms in the meta makes me happy because I don't necessarily think that Prism is an incredible class to pick, but it is very annoying to play against because you can literally, like, the amount of damage that if they draw the right cards that they can do on you is just ridiculous. And Library is a stupid card. And I don't know. I just really don't like that here on that deck. And it makes it's honestly, when I showed up on Houston, I had a good matchup into it. I'm comfortable saying that. Like, I had a good matchup into it, but it was the deck I was most afraid of because I just didn't want to low roll into somebody who was drawing hot, and I knew I'd lose the game out of any kind of control I had over the game state. It just wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I'm pretty firm in my belief that, having played that matchup on both sides a few times, or actually a number of times, that it is Bravo favored. Obviously play skill comes into it and builds come into it, and you know what, Prism can have these really strong draws where people land a library early, the Bravo opponent either doesn't find the double yellow or doesn't find like a show time to go and find the second yellow and can't play to those draws, or they do, and in the meantime you get to land like Genesis, Ode, whatever. Like you get to do all the stuff, but in general, I think that that Guardian still has the favor there. But it's an interesting format. And I think the Dash call out is good. We'll see Dash this weekend. Whether people are able to just pick that up and run with that deck immediately, I think there is a bit of nuance to how Matt decided to build and sideboard that.
Yes.
So
the deck is slightly hard, right? Like the old school one, like that we knew in Crucible is pretty. I mean, this is it's kind of a more legit control deck where you have to really pace your defense reactions and really kind of get your items out at the correct time. You can obviously high roll and get them all out really early without taking too much punishment, but you have to kind of balance punishment versus, assembling Exodia or whatever it is. So that is not, for a newer player, I wouldn't immediately put them onto, if I wanted them to have a good result, I wouldn't put them on Dash Control for their first road to Nationals. So people net decking that, I'm not too worried about, because I do think there is some nuance to Dash Control. As annoying and as frustrating it is to play against, if you're on the other side sometimes, I do think that that's a relatively higher skill deck. Probably mediums level, actually. I wouldn't say high is getting a little there.
It's not some of the...
It'll be interesting. I think there's one thing I think there's a lot less publicity around, because usually, I don't know if Matt listens to this or if he knows this, but I've said this before. Matt is a really, I don't know, he's a really popular figure in North America. So anything that Matt Rogers plays or he wins on, you're basically expected to immediately be everywhere, right? It'll be the most popular deck by far. But even though Matt won, I've heard way less people saying Matt did this, Matt did that, I'm taking this list, I'm playing Dash now. And this is just from my small nuance of information I get, which is from some group chats from the area. But I think there was a little less publicity around that one than there usually is. I know Luis Scott Vargas just had an article go up about it. So it will come, but have people, changed onto it fast enough, right? Week 3, I expect more of it. It's just week 2, it's how fast were people, because the information from New Zealand seemed kind of slow, right? It wasn't on FabDB. You kind of had to get it from somewhere. So
a lot of events.
I don't think there'll be too much mech. Actually, week 2, I think it'll more happen in week 3, as there's more coverage around. I don't know. I feel the information of what deck Matt played and what he won on and how he won is kind of just coming out. It's in terms of the polished, easy to digest version, where it's here's Luis telling you how to play the deck. Here's Matt in a video telling you how to play the deck. And once that stuff comes out, then people it's just going to be everywhere.
Yeah, I'll just rewind a bit. I think there's a lot of events happening as well. So there's a lot of information for people to digest, whereas in the past, an event in New Zealand has been the only event on that weekend and it's risen to the top or whatever. Just quickly, it's not actually a traditional control deck, this Dash list that Matt and co played. It is a more of a mid-range build, and can definitely switch to an aggressive plan. So it is a bit more in line with the Crucible mid-range decks, but it just has a set of different cards for the different meta. There's less items because Prism's a thing and they need some 6 attacks and et cetera, et cetera. So but I agree. I wouldn't be this is the deck to go and play if you're walking into your first road to Nationals or you're untested. I think challenging. Yeah, you still need to understand how to sideboard. You get caught out pretty easily if you're not careful. And the last thing I want to say on deck choices and things like that is that I think one of the most interesting things is that the reason you're playing Bravo this week is not the reason that I would say 95% of people are playing Bravo around you when you go to events this week, which is why the list looks a bit different, is because you have probably a different understanding of what you want to do with this Bravo deck as opposed to traditional just control Bravo decks that want to fatigue people. I think Go ahead. I was just going to say, and you can then correct me if you think this is incorrect, but my understanding, I think, is that we don't really think that traditional Bravo control is the way to attack this meta right now, that it's actually that efficient.
Nope. I think it's but I don't want to go too much on that quite yet. But I would say, just as a sort of a basis, as right now, my opinions on the meta are quite different from what I'll see kind of talked about in general areas of social exchange. I think people are starting to come over to what I thought about the meta. Maybe I'll end up being completely wrong, but right now a lot of people believe things that I am very much against through our testing. So we will see. But that's why my deck is going to look so different. Is I'm not going to go out there, bring a control deck, and end up playing mechs and lose, or end up playing these Prism builds and not have a proactive game plan, or be hyper focused on blocking a chain, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, we might talk about more about that Prism and Guardian matchup in the future, because I have watched matches where the Prism just destroys the Guardian player, but I think there's a really simple reason for that. And then lastly, I was just going to say as well, I think, yeah, like the group that we have tested and played within Brennan, I think we all kind of agree on where we see the meta right now and set differences. But I think the one thing me and you particularly disagree on is probably some card choices you're going to play at this Road to Nationals this weekend for certain reasons.
For sure. I mean, let's be real. Like,
it's not meta dependent.
I messaged Hayden while we were sleeping, and I was like, "Dude, I'm cutting the rousing, so I'm just monkey throwing in CNC. Like, I don't care." Just like, I think that, like, yeah, I'm playing a deck that I know is theoretically wrong, and I have like a pretty small sample size where it has felt good, which has been pretty much all my testing games. But still, it's like under 50, under 100, so it doesn't really matter. And I could still make the decision to put it back in more blues, but who knows? Because we're going to be playing some more now. But I want to get off, hardcore meta stuff and playing. But Hayden, I want to ask you this because I know we talked about it like 6 months ago. But finally, the 2022 Pro Tour winning, prizes, everything has been announced. Where do you see yourself as a competitive player in 2022?
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to be trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? Yeah. What are you going to sacrifice to do this? Like, not really sacrifice, but are you going to change the way you're currently living your life to kind of maybe focus on this a little bit more? I don't really know how to phrase that, but I think you understand what I'm trying to do.
I know what you're trying to say. Yeah. What does it mean for me? I think it's I mean, first of all, super excited, right? Like, we talked about this on the pod this week with Dave, who joined us, about what this announcement means for players. And I think until we get a bit more information about what the sort of price structure or what incentives might be for people who want to actively probably pursue this to some degree, I think one of the things, just first of all, is if you look at how NTG did their Pro Tours and things like that, is that they provided incentives for people to try and pursue some type of, I guess, either as a main career or as a side piece to their career to pursue the Pro Tour, and then our players are obviously able to supplement that with writing or creating content or having sponsorships or whatever it might be. I think Flesh and Blood might not have that quite to that same degree, so I think to make it a full-time thing could be very difficult. For me personally, I wouldn't want to do that anyway. I don't think. I might want to spend some amount of time on this game trying to. Basically, if I said my first few goals is to play the first Pro Tour and play the first Worlds, that's my main goal, is to get there and do well in those events. Dedicate the next year, I guess, to this game as probably my main secondary piece to my career, and see what happens. I'm in a spot probably in my life where my career is getting more full on. I'm now in a role that's got a reasonable amount of responsibility and has things that come with it where not that it's not necessarily a normal sort of 9 to 5 in some regards, but it does have a lot of things going on in my days, and it is still reasonably structured to a degree. Like, I do have a lot of meetings, I do have a lot of people who rely on me, so I would have to make a pretty drastic change in my life to say that I'm going to go and pursue 15 callings next year and every Pro Tour and Worlds. But what I think for me, what my definitely initial sort of outlet is that if we're able to travel, because that's also dependent on how soon I can travel outside of Australia, obviously, is that my plan would be to go and play a series of callings in North America, probably, that line up with the first Pro Tour, play the first Pro Tour, I have a PTI, and then go and play the World Championships that year, and then probably step back and make an assessment about what my future is in the game from there. I think a lot of players are starting to get really good at this game. We're going to see players come over from other TCGs who are actively trying to pursue the competitive side of this game. And like, I'll be honest, I think I will fall away from being a better player in this game, because there'll just be better players that come in, or people will be able to spend more time in this game, and I just won't be able to. But I think for the first year, while I have what I consider still to be an edge and still really passionate about this game from a competitive side, then that's my plan. What about you, Brennan? What's your thoughts? I know you're probably going to be able to dedicate a bit more than me to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. So things can always go the way you don't expect. So if things kind of keep going the way they are for me, and it's like everything in my life is pretty stable, so I expect it to, then I'll be playing most competitive events in 2022. So we'll see. And that obviously, my goal is to win the world championships, which I know is something that's like sounds arrogant to say, but I think that if that isn't your goal, then you never will achieve that. So
you just stumble into it, right?
Yeah, nobody accidentally becomes great.
A gold medalist at the Olympics. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen by accident. You have to want that to get it. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's a lot easier than you in terms of time commitment, in terms of like what impact it will have on my life. And obviously, I live in a much more geographically convenient place than you do for this kind of thing. So yeah, my 2022 definitely looks like playing these events. And there'd have to be, I think, something pretty unforeseen to stop that. But yeah, I just hope that calling champion Hayden Dale will join me on my journey.
I'd love to. I think, to be honest, it's early days to try and make a decision. There's so many factors, like the first one being we don't have all the information on what this looks like. The second piece being that, like, just current situation. I don't even know if I'm going to be playing a national champs this year. Like, it looks like Australia might not even have a nationals, which that's not anything from LSS or things I've heard. That's just pure speculation based on the current circumstances that Australia is in as a country. So, we just have to wait and see. I think, like, I would love to early next year make the decision to take a month off work or whatever it is, go and travel and play these events. The callings, play the first pro tour in April that we know is going to be in the US, and then go from there. But we'll see what happens, Brendan. If I can be there, I'll be here to test. So let's see what happens.
I just want to clarify as well. Like, for me, I'm in the same boat as Hayden, where I will never make it a career. I have a separate career that I've focused on and will continue to kind of pursue, and that's like it's bigger than kind of the game. But luckily for the career that I do have, I can kind of do both simultaneously. But yeah, my goal is not to try to, I don't ever want to live that life where you're trying to kind of make money off events that come where you can lose to variants. Like, it's just not the way I want to live. And
yeah, I don't want to play event to event.
Yeah, no, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But hey, I want to ask you, what are some of like parts of your life that are not related to TCGs that help you in Flesh and Blood, or skills, things? I mean, I don't know what other word you said for things not related to TCGs.
I guess like activities, right, or things in just activities in life, or skills or hobbies or whatever it might be. Yeah, I think there's a question. I think one of the most important things is probably like discipline, right? Like in terms of being able to commit to things. Like, I've always been someone who if I'm into something, will commit to it, whether that be things that I did at an early age, through sports, or through like dancing has been a really big part of my life, where that was like really regimented for me for so long, that when it comes to even another hobby now, even if it's something a lot more, I guess, casual, and I'm not relying on other people aren't relying on me to a degree like they were in sports, I'm still really committed to my routine. Although in saying that, like, we still do have a team, right, who are reliant in some degree, right? Like, I don't want to let people down. I don't want to not show up for testing one day because something's going on that's avoidable. Like, I've just made plans or whatever it is. Like, I'm going to be committed to that. So I think that's really important. I was talking to Brendan before. I think one of the most interesting things for me is that I've never been a big gamer. Like, I never played video games that much. I dabbled in like a bit of Dota when I was in university, and I've played like like some RPGs and things like that, but never played like FPSs or got into that sort of world massively. But one game that I did play from like a younger age, like through high school, university, and even I play the game, but now is like Football Manager, which is a simulation game, like a management simulation game. And strategy is something that's always really interested me, like background strategy. And also, I'm also just a passionate soccer fan. So I call it soccer because I know I'm a North American audience. It's football, guys. You use your foot, you kick the ball. It's football. But anyway, and it's a strategy-based game. I think that's something that always ticks over my mind. I see myself as someone who's quite big picture, like treetop view when it comes to strategy. So that's a game that I've always enjoyed, and I think I take that approach into Flesh and Blood as well. Like, I was thinking this before, Brendan, when you were talking about the decision of like your blues versus some cards in your Bravo deck, is that I would probably characterize us and tell me if you think this is unfair on your side, but I would definitely say that most of the decisions and conversation we have, I'm driven by theory when we have those conversations, whereas I think you're driven a bit more by experience in your gameplay. And I don't know if that's because you probably get to play more games than I do. But that's kind of the way I see it so far. I don't know if that's fair though.
I'm just a bit of a monkey, you know.
I wouldn't say that. I just think you're more of a field-based person when it comes to that sort of thing. But
yeah, I always want the more theory-based people with me because I need that side, right? I want to approach things from that way, that way. I think that's the only way you actually find truth is through statistics and mathematics. I think feel is kind of a trap, but yeah, I mean that is how I play, right? I think that the largest edge I have as a player is probably sequencing in complex game states. It's not deck building and it's not really theory. Although, like, obviously, playing as much as we do and doing as much content as we do, like, I do pick up on the theory.
Yeah, it's not that you don't use theory, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a combination.
But I do agree with you to an extent. So after that off-theme edit, Hayden, I'm going to ask you. You asked me what my favorite movie was, which is, everybody knows, it's the worst question you could possibly ask someone. So I'm going to ask you another crappy question, off-brand. So what is your favorite place in the world?
Oh, I was expecting the favorite movie question because I'm quite a movie buff, so that would be fine. But what is my favorite place in the world? It's like a tricky question because I think as I get older and the more time I spend away from home, my favorite place in the world may well be home to a degree. But
where's home? You mean like Australia?
It's a question, right? Like, I'm in that spot now where it's like, where is home? Like, I've lived in 3 different cities in my life for probably almost equal time.
Trying to hit him with a softball, and he goes just like, "What is the home?"
Home for me is still New Zealand. Still, I guess where my childhood was, and my friends are, and my family are. But I think probably my favorite place outside of that is probably Japan, to be honest. Like, I loved my time in Japan, especially out. Like, Tokyo is great. I loved Tokyo. Like, it's a great spot and spending time there. But even outside of Tokyo, like Kyoto, I think is an interesting city. It's very old. It's got a lot of history. It's like it's such a contrast to Tokyo in so many ways. And so is Osaka, actually, to that degree as well, which is in a very similar area. The time I spent there I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to go back, to be honest. Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll get there one day.
Sweet. All right. Well, that's time of the round. Oh, shit. Let's go active player. Oh, turn 0. 1 initial turn.
It's time of the round.